For 5 years, I walked past her in the hallways, sat across from her in meetings, even complained about her to other coworkers. Neither of us could explain why we felt such a strange connection and tension from the moment we met. Then our company hosted a DNA testing event, and I discovered the coworker I'd been competing with for half a decade was actually my twin sister. Hi, Reddit. I'm still processing the fact that my life has suddenly turned into a movie plot, but I need to share this story because it's too incredible to keep to myself. I'm Emma, 34 years old, and I've worked at a major tech company in Seattle for the past 6 years. I've always known I was adopted. My parents told me when I was very young and were always open about it. They had very limited information about my birth parents, only that my birth mother was very young, couldn't care for a baby, and wanted me to have a better life than she could provide. I was grateful for my adoptive parents' honesty, but I never felt a strong desire to search for my biological family. I had a happy childhood in Portland with loving parents who I consider my real family in every way that matters. When I was hired at my company, I quickly established myself in the marketing department. I worked hard, built good relationships with most of my colleagues, and was on track for promotions. Everything was going smoothly until about 5 years ago when Lauren transferred to our department from the New York office. From the moment Lauren arrived, there was a strange energy between us. I wouldn't call it dislike exactly, more like an inexplicable awareness. When she was in a room, I always knew it, even before seeing her. We had similar mannerisms that coworkers occasionally commented on. We'd reach for the coffee pot at the same time or accidentally wear nearly identical outfits, which became a running joke in the office. But there was also tension. We were both ambitious and often competed for the same projects. We had similar ideas in meetings, which sometimes led to awkward moments where it seemed like one of us was copying the other. Lauren irritated me in ways I couldn't quite explain, perhaps because I saw traits in her that I didn't like about myself. We remained professional but never became friends, despite several coworkers commenting that we should get along since we were so similar. Little did they know how right they were. Last month, our company announced they were sponsoring a wellness and ancestry event. As part of a health initiative, they offered employees free DNA testing kits from one of those popular ancestry companies. The idea was to learn about genetic health predispositions and ancestry with optional sharing of fun results at a reveal party. Most of us participated. It seemed like a harmless team-building activity plus a free service that usually costs about $100. I didn't think much of it when I spit in the tube and sent it off. I was mildly curious about my ethnic background but wasn't expecting any revelations. Lauren participated too, though we didn't discuss it. We barely spoke outside of necessary work interactions. 6 weeks later, the results were ready, and the company hosted a lunch where people could share interesting discoveries about their heritage. Some people found surprising ancestry percentages. Others discovered they were distantly related to historical figures. It was fun and lighthearted. I hadn't checked my results before the event, preferring to open them during the lunch. As I logged into the website on my phone, I noticed Lauren across the room, staring at her own phone with a shocked expression. Our eyes met, and something passed between us, a recognition that's difficult to describe. My hands were shaking as I navigated to the DNA relatives section of the app. And there it was, Lauren Mitchell, 100% shared DNA, identical twin. The room seemed to spin around me. Identical twin? That couldn't be right. I looked up again, and Lauren was walking toward me, her phone extended, showing me the same result from her end. "Did you know?" she whispered. I shook my head, unable to form words. Around us, coworkers continued chatting, completely unaware of the life-altering discovery happening in their midst. Lauren and I stepped out into the hallway, both of us trembling. "I was adopted too," she said, "from a closed adoption in Boston." "I was adopted in Portland," I replied. "My parents never mentioned a twin." We compared birthdays, identical of course, the same hospital in Boston. Neither of our adoptive families had been told about a twin. Either the adoption agency had hidden this information, or our birth mother had requested the separation. Whatever the reason, the truth was undeniable. We had been separated at birth and by some cosmic coincidence had ended up not just in the same city or the same industry, but at the exact same company. We both called in sick for the remainder of that day. Neither of us was emotionally capable of returning to work and pretending everything was normal. We went to a quiet cafe near the office, where we sat for hours, comparing our lives, showing each other childhood photos, and marveling at the similarities we'd never recognized. We had both grown up as only children. Both majored in marketing communications in college, though at different schools. We shared the same allergies to strawberries and cats, the same intolerance for cilantro, and even the same habit of twisting our hair when concentrating. The more we talked, the more obvious it became that our connection went far beyond physical appearance. But there were differences too. Lauren had grown up in a strict religious household in upstate New York, while my upbringing in Portland had been more liberal and laid back. She was more reserved and detail-oriented, while I was more outgoing and big-picture focused. Nature versus nurture playing out in real time. That evening, we reluctantly parted ways, both needing time to process. I went home and cried for hours, overwhelmed by emotions I couldn't even name. Joy at finding a sister I never knew I had. Anger at whoever had decided we should be separated. Confusion about what this meant for my identity and my future. I called my parents that night. They were as shocked as I was. They swore they had never been told I was a twin, and I believed them. The adoption agency had only mentioned that I was a healthy newborn whose young mother couldn't care for me. My parents were devastated to learn I had been separated from a sibling and kept in the dark all these years. Lauren had a similar conversation with her parents, who were equally surprised. They too had adopted through an agency that gave them minimal information. Both sets of parents expressed support for our newfound connection, though I sensed some fear that this discovery might somehow change our relationships with them. The next day at work was surreal. We hadn't told anyone yet, wanting to process it ourselves first, but people immediately noticed something had changed between us. The tension that had always existed had transformed into something else, a tentative bond, a shared secret. Over the next few weeks, Lauren and I met regularly outside of work, piecing together our parallel lives and re-examining our past interactions through this new lens. We realized that much of our previous tension likely stemmed from unconscious recognition. Studies suggest that even separated twins often experience a sense of familiarity or connection when they meet. Our competitive relationship suddenly made sense. We had similar strengths and weaknesses, similar thought processes and instincts. No wonder we often reached the same conclusions or had similar ideas. Remember that presentation pitch last year, when we both submitted almost identical concepts? Lauren asked during one of our dinners. I laughed. Everyone thought one of us had stolen the other's idea. And remember how much it used to bother you when I would finish your sentences in meetings? Or how we'd both wear burgundy on important presentation days without planning it? We laughed about these moments now, but they had caused real friction in the past. I had often felt irrationally annoyed by Lauren's mannerisms or attitudes, likely because they reflected parts of myself I wasn't fully comfortable with. There was one incident in particular that had created lasting tension between us. 2 years ago, we had both been considered for a significant promotion. The selection process came down to Lauren and me, and ultimately, she got the position. I had harbored resentment about this for months, convinced that she had somehow politically maneuvered her way into the role. I always thought you hated me after that promotion, Lauren admitted. I did a little, I confessed. I couldn't understand why they chose you when our qualifications were so similar. It was hardly a victory, she said quietly. I overheard our manager saying they picked me because I was less emotional in high-stress situations. That always bothered me because it felt like they were punishing your passion. This conversation was healing. We began to see how we had each perceived the other as competition rather than complement, missing the opportunity to appreciate our differences. About a month after our discovery, we decided it was time to search for information about our birth mother. We both wanted answers about why we were separated and whether the decision had been hers or someone else's. We registered with several adoption reunion registries and submitted our DNA to additional databases, hoping for matches with biological relatives. We also hired a private investigator who specialized in adoption cases. The process was frustrating and slow, but 3 months in, we got our first lead. A second cousin match on one of the DNA sites agreed to speak with us. She was shocked to learn about our existence but provided crucial information. Our birth mother's name was Sophia Carroll, and she had been just 16 when she had us. With this information, our investigator was able to locate Sophia, who now lived in California. We drafted a letter together, careful not to be accusatory or emotional, simply explaining who we were and that we would welcome contact if she was open to it. 2 agonizing weeks later, we received a response. Sophia's email was tearful and apologetic. She explained that she had been a teenager from a troubled home when she got pregnant. With no support system and no resources, adoption had been her only option. But here was the revelation that changed everything. She had never known we were separated. According to Sophia, she had specifically requested that we be kept together, understanding the special bond between twins. The adoption agency had assured her we would be placed in the same home. Learning that we had been separated and kept unaware of each other's existence was as shocking to her as it had been to us. This information led us to investigate the now defunct adoption agency. Through legal channels, we discovered evidence suggesting several unethical practices, including the deliberate separation of twins to make placements more appealing to prospective parents who didn't want to adopt multiple children. Our case wasn't the only one. This revelation brought a complex mix of emotions: anger at the system that had separated us, relief that our birth mother hadn't chosen to split us up, and gratitude that against impossible odds we had found each other anyway. As for our relationship now, Lauren and I have developed a bond that's difficult to describe. We're not best friends. We're still learning how to be sisters after 3 decades apart. We have different lives, different friends, different perspectives, but there's an undeniable connection that goes beyond shared DNA. We've made some changes at work. Lauren requested a transfer to a different team so we could maintain professional separation while developing our personal relationship. This has helped us avoid the complications of being both coworkers and newly discovered sisters. We've also met each other's adoptive families. My parents hosted a dinner for Lauren's family, which was initially awkward but ultimately heartwarming. Our parents have found common ground in their shared experience of adoption and their concern for our well-being through this emotional journey. Last month, we flew to California to meet Sophia in person. It was a profound experience. Seeing features of ourselves in her face, hearing the full story of her life and the circumstances of our birth. She's not our mother in the way our adoptive mothers are, but she's become an important part of our story. Life doesn't often give you such clear evidence that some connections transcend circumstance. Despite being separated at birth and raised in different states with no knowledge of each other, something drew us to the same company, the same department, even the same career path. What do you think about our story? Have you ever felt an inexplicable connection to someone who turned out to be important in your life? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story of separated twins finding each other meaningful, please subscribe for more incredible true stories that remind us how mysterious and wonderful life can be.